Good. Welcome to the August meeting of the Board of Directors of Butler Regional Hospital. Ms. Monk, you, yes, good to the Connecticut, Ida, and Ascension people. We respectfully acknowledge them as the original inhabitants of Southeast Alaska. Bartlett Regional Hospital is located on the homelands of the Iroquois. We are grateful to provide service within your ancestral homeland and to be part of this community. Thank you. All right. Roll call, please.
Dr. Hernandez? Present. Yes. Chris Letterman?
Here.
Dr. King? Max Works?
Here.
Lisa Peterson? Al Geiger?
Present.
Dr. Lester?
Here.
Dan Johnston?
Here.
Okay, and we do have Dr. Totten, and we have Paul here.
Okay, thank you. Now it's time to approve the agenda. However, there are going to be a couple of changes to it. Under.
Dr. King, right?
Okay. Welcome, Dr. Timmy. Approval of the agenda. There are a couple of changes to the agenda. If you look at under committee meeting updates, you'll see that there are two meetings that are missing from that agenda. We are actually going to have updates from them. We just didn't have meeting minutes in time to put into the packet. So there will be reports from both the finance committee and the quality planning committee. And also the special board meeting. That is going to be postponed. We're not ready for that. There's no action item on it, so that's going to be postponed till next board meeting. So that's going to go kind of off the agenda. So are there any objections to those modifications to the agenda? And I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda as modified.
I move. Second.
Thank you. All right, moving on to old business.
And I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sorry. Jump right over you.
It's not old business.
No, you're not old. So new business every time.
Hi, board. I'm Bruce Wyrock. I'm the president of the Foundation for End of Life Care. I can to speak on a few subjects today. I'm also speaking in my personal capacity. So if anything is pleasing and perhaps with the president of the Foundation for End of Life Care, it's inaccurate or offensive. It's in my personal capacity. If you can't understand me or not articulate enough, it's Brent Kinney's fault because he just put a bunch of braces on my teeth. The Foundation for End of Life Care's mission is to support healthcare and hospice, bereavement and grief counseling, and educate the public, physicians, patients on end of life care and helping empower individuals on their end of life care options. I'm going to pass to my right a couple of things that we are doing recently. One is basically a rack card on what the foundation is and resources for the public. And the other thing is a speaker we're going to have in September, Dr. Lonnie Leary. She'll be speaking downstairs and she has CME credit. So any physicians and nurses that need CME credit can just go to that. She's a really renowned person on grief and bereavement. So everyone in here in this room has lost someone special to them. And I think everybody in the room has suffered grief. And so I think this would be a great opportunity. I plan on going. My mom died last year and I plan to go. A couple of the things the foundation is doing is we understand hospice loses money and sometimes lots of money. And one of our short-term objectives is to try and get people into hospice sooner so they realize the benefits of hospice so that they're not in there 2 days and die. It's a big loss for hospice and health and home care. We're trying to get them in sooner so that they can take advantage of the good services hospice offers to get them out of the hospital, to help the hospital make more money in various ways. And that takes public education. And so you'll be hearing radio spots from the foundation about our aging population, which is increasingly going to need hospice and home care, and about personal experiences that those on the board have had with hospice to try to get people in there sooner. So that's part of the public education campaign. The main reason I came here though today was to talk about some information we recently received from a very good board member we have, Angela Davis, and some information I've received from Max Mertz. And it's distilled and provided to the public, really, in a memorandum dated July 28, 2026, to the board of directors from Deborah Johnson, board president, and in a letter dated June 2nd, 2026, to Mayor Weldon and assembly members from Deborah Johnson, the board president, on recent actions by the city and borough of Juneau Assembly to take money from the hospital and reappropriate it for a rainforest recovery. And my short take on this is it's either poorly understood by what the assembly did in a charitable way and outrageous in another way. The hospital is a enterprise board like docks and harbors, like the airport, like water and wastewater. And what the assembly did was take money away from the hospital to give it to rainforest recovery. And that to me is not only potentially legally sideways of what is allowed by the assembly in its spending decisions, but it's an outrageous affront, I think, to the hospital's independence to run a healthy, well-financed organization. And I think the hospital needs to take board here, needs to take aggressive action and inform the airport board what it did, Docks and Harbors board of what the assembly did, and the water and waste water utility what it did, because they're next if the assembly is allowed to get away with this. Now, we are meeting individually with board members, or excuse me, assembly members. We met last week with the mayor, or we're going to meet with Maureen Hall. I don't know what the position of the assembly's liaison to this board was when the assembly took that action, whether she supported it, whether she advised the assembly it was so considered, or what the status of that is. But it seems to me that at the least, the board should have a special meeting with the assembly to advise them of the dangers of that decision and to have them revoke it. So that's what my testimony in a nutshell is. We're very concerned about that because we know hospice is not a moneymaker. But hospice is a core function of this hospital. And if it can't afford to run, it doesn't do any good for the assembly to say, we support hospice on one hand, but take money away from the hospital on the other. So those are my views about what this board should do. And you need to get out there and start meeting with assembly members, because I'll bet you a dime, not all of them have even read it yet because they're inundated with information. So it's up to this board to start educating the assembly on what happened and to educate other enterprise boards of what happened because of the dangers and risk of what the assembly did. And whether that was a staff decision that was simply rubber stamped by the assembly, or the assembly really knew what it was doing, I don't know. There's too much going on right now behind the scenes. I'm only know enough right now to be dangerous, but those are my preliminary views on that.
Thank you, Mr. Lawyer. Any questions for Mr. Lawyer?
Maybe it's a matter of updates. So the board, first of all, Mr. Wire, thank for coming and sharing your concerns with us. And I think the board, at least I agree with you. At the last meeting, the board basically appoints the right word, but asked that I go to an assembly meeting and share the board's feelings about this. Timing has been such we didn't want to go right in the middle of the law, so we didn't go last month. So that's planning on happening in September. So you should show up too.
Well, those of you in the room and on the board who've been around Juneau a long time know that there's always been a strong move to move the capital out of Juneau. And some of us have direct participation and involvement with those activities. And we know that if the capital moves, those are not successful, what happens many times is Juneau is perceived as a cherry tree to simply pick jobs out and move them around the state for political benefit from somebody else. We saw that when they moved the entire ferry system. I don't want the hospital to be perceived as some money tree to be picked to help some other entity out or some other problem that the city is dealing with. That's the risk. So as a physician would say, staunch the bleeding, repair the break, and find the fool that did it. Thank you. That's all my
Okay.
mild testimony.
Moving on to the consent agenda, I would entertain a motion to use the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
All right, now we're moving on to old business. As we go.
So for his days in July, May, June, at 260, with a current census of 9, MedSurg 432, CCU 85, OB at 58, Newborn Nursery 49. The ED saw 1,180 patients last month. We did have 11 days so far in August that we were on code triage. Many of those days were consecutive days in a row because we were at over census. We currently have 6 people waiting for placement. We have 1 that needs acute rehab, 1 that needs subacute rehab, 3 long-term care. 2 of those don't have a payer source, so we're trying to get a payer source for them. And then 1 that needs an assisted living, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I just have one. So Kim, is it sometimes because of, we don't have enough staff nurses, or is it really pretty much the house is full?
I think there might have been 2 days out of the 11 that we were on that was staffing, but the consecutive days in a row were just high census. We just were full. Yeah, we were holding in the ER, holding in. We had CCU patients in the ER, we had med-surg patients on CCU, and med-surg school.
Thank you. Mr. Michael.
I provided the dashboard as I have in months past. We continue to make positive moves in the right direction in operations, staffing, productivity. I think it was reported last month about the durable medical equipment. We're now 6 weeks into delivering beds, oxygen, wheelchairs, walkers, and everything in between. Our nurses have been very much involved in that, as well as Bartlett maintenance. And we'll be checking in on how that is going and make sure that we don't need to make any changes, but families are happy. Volume continues to be strong. The initial dip that we had in home health has already headed back up. We're at ABC of 15 as of today, which was 13 last week. So a lot more referrals coming in that way. We do have a bereavement event tomorrow, a bonfire for our bereaved, and a grief support group that is starting in October to help our families who have lost somebody. And hopefully next month, the dashboards will look a little bit different. We're working with our EHR to automate these things so that I don't have to do them through Excel, which I'm really happy about.
Thank you. Any questions?
I don't really have a question. I just want to be sure that you understand, I really appreciate the consistent, informative use of graphics. It helps me, and looks like it's put together with both carrying press and sheets.
Any other comments?
Aaron, at the finance committee meeting, Angela reported on the fact that we're getting caught up on the in-house billings. Could you just kind of
talk how that's going, and it reported, I think we were down to about $30,000, somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah, we're essentially completely caught up. That was a lot of operational stabilization, documentation, some accountability, education, all of those things contributed to us being in that place today.
Appreciate the effort. We know it's been a lot. Thank you for that.
Any other comments or questions? All right, Ms. Kelly.
Good evening, everyone. For the month of July, there wasn't a lot of movement in the census. Our average daily census was 54, almost 55. And our occupancy rate was around 86, 87. And our census today is at 50.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Okay. Please report.
Yes, can you hear me?
You can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I am at home today because I have 11 roof leaks in my brand new construction. So I apologize, but hopefully you won't hear water behind me. Just going over our current activity, the Grace and Phil Edelman Health Science Scholarships have been all awarded. All the distributions have been sent out, totaling $21,250 for this current fall semester 2026. The remaining scholarships will be sent out in the spring. A total of $37,500 will be awarded, and that is our largest scholarship distribution in our history of our program's history. The Blue Heron Gift Shop, if you have not heard already, is in the early stages of the closure process. We're expected to be open till about November, depending on how we're staging that in the process through that. Over the years, our gift shop has been very well received and appreciated by our staff and visitors of the hospital. And as part of the transition, we are working with Spearfish to identify some of the popular items that we have, helping to maintain some of that access to select products after the gift shop closes. We do have a donor appreciation event and pig roast. Unfortunately, since the edits went out on this, September 26th, we found out is also Capital City Brewfest. So we have decided to move our date to November. So there'll be a new, probably early November date coming up. We're just awaiting for approval from the Yacht Club. So we'll be moving that date. We also have an event coming up in October called the Beer for Our Boys event. And I'll be able to share a little bit more information about that after I meet with Jess from Aurora Foundation. Investment is total to date $66,437.04. And I'm here to offer any answers to any questions you may have right now.
Any questions? Great news about the scholarship program.
We're very proud of that. Thank you.
And I'm looking forward to the donor appreciation pig roast again this year. So hoping that.
Yep, I will be sending out new information about that too.
Perfect. Here you go. Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Kermit. All right. This night we have an education presentation by Mr. Erickson.
Good evening, I'm Andrew Erickson. I'm the controller here at Bartlett Regional Hospital. Today I'll provide a high-level overview of major payment methodologies that drive reimbursement across Bartlett Regional Hospital's various service lines, as well as briefly overview contractual and bad debt allowances. This presentation is organized into 6 sections. First, we'll review hospital payment systems, then clinic payment systems, followed by skilled nursing and swing bed, and home health hospice. And then finally, we'll dive into allowances and net revenue. We'll begin with hospital payment systems. Bartlett Regional Hospital's acute inpatient services are generally reimbursed under the Inpatient Prospective System, or IPPS. Under IPPS, Medicare pays a fixed amount based on patient's assigned diagnosis-related group, or DRGs. A useful way to think about DRGs is that Medicare is purchasing a complete inpatient episode of care rather than paying for every individual service provided. The hospital receives the same payment whether costs come in below or above that amount. As a result, documentation accuracy, severity coding, length of stay management, and cost controls are very important. When treatment costs exceed reimbursement, the hospital absorbs much of that financial risk. Outpatient services are paid differently. Most Medicare outpatient services are reimbursed through the Outpatient Prospective Payment System, or OPPS. Services are categorized into ambulatory payment classifications known as APCs. Similar services are grouped together and assigned predetermined payment rates. Unlike inpatient reimbursement, payment is generally tied to individual services or encounters. Financial performance is influenced by coding accuracy, service mix, patient volume, and the cost of delivering care. The next slide highlights an alternative Medicare payment model available to a limited number of rural hospitals. Bartlett was a participant in this model until our last 5-year term ended in June 2025. Bartlett's reentry into this program is currently pending federal legislation. Under the Rural Community Hospital Demonstration, participating hospitals can receive cost-based reimbursement for inpatient services rather than DRG-based reimbursement. The purpose is to support rural hospitals whose low patient volumes make traditional prospective payment systems challenging. Because reimbursement is closely tied to allowable cost, accurate cost reporting becomes extremely important. Another alternative model is critical access hospital. Unlike DRG reimbursement, Medicare generally reimburses critical access hospitals at approximately 101% of reasonable cost for many covered inpatient outpatient services. This method significantly reduces volume-related financial risk. Because reimbursement is based on cost, the Medicare cost report becomes one of the most important financial and compliance documents for critical access hospitals. Next, we'll move from hospital facility reimbursement to professional and clinic reimbursement. These systems determine how physicians, advanced practice providers, or APPs, and outpatient clinics are paid. Professional services performed by physicians and APPs are typically reimbursed through the Medicare physician fee schedule. The professional fee compensates the clinician for their work, judgment, and expertise. Importantly, this is separate from the hospital facility reimbursement. In some settings, a professional claim and a facility claim can both be generated from the same patient encounter.
So, okay, sorry. And I remember that they had a separate facility claim, but I thought that legislated, that was taken away.
Like the site neutral policies. It's still allowed for certain models such as the provider-based clinic, which we'll talk about.
Oh, very good. Okay.
But still, there are these attacks coming on the provider-based clinics that are kind of taking away
At that designation.
at that designation and making it less optimal. Yeah. Next, we'll go into freestanding and independent clinics. A freestanding clinic is not treated as part of the hospital for Medicare billing purposes. These clinics generally receive reimbursement through professional fee schedules only. Unlike provider-based clinics, there's usually no additional facility payment associated with the visit. The Bartlett outpatient clinics are currently operating as freestanding clinics. The financial success of freestanding clinics often depends heavily on provider productivity, visit volume, staffing levels, and overhead management. Next, we'll go into rural health clinics, or RHCs.
Andrew,
Yes.
could you go back on the freestanding clinics? In the cost report, do you push overhead costs to those clinics?
You do, and they're excluded on the cost report if you're doing a cost-based reimbursement. Any other questions on freestanding clinics? Next, we'll go into another alternative model to a freestanding clinic. These are rural health clinics, or RHCs. Rather than paying primarily under the physician fee schedule, Medicare generally pays an all-inclusive rate for qualifying visits. The goal is to support access to primary care in rural communities. Reimbursement is centered around the visit itself rather than individual services performed during the visit. Another alternative model for clinics are provider-based clinics. Just talked about these briefly. These are clinics that meet Medicare requirements to be treated as part of the hospital. In these settings, there may be both a facility component and a professional component to the reimbursement. Another important advantage of provider-based status is eligibility to participate in the hospital's 340 program as a child site. However, provider-based status also comes with extensive compliance requirements and certain site-neutral payment policies. And that's a theme with a lot of these alternative models is there is a large compliance component with very specific requirements for participation.
So could you talk more about the site neutral policies, what that means?
So that is this movement to make reimbursement the same regardless of the site for specific services. So if you're a provider-based clinic and you're made all the guidelines, you could bill both the facility component and the professional component. But you could have a freestanding clinic right next door that's not associated with provider, and they're only able to bill that professional component. So the argument is that the United States is spending a lot of money on these services that should be billed in a similar way to freestanding clinics. But so that's been a conflict for, I don't know, a few years now. And it's according to Alaska Hospital and Healthcare Association, it's going to continue for the foreseeable future. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, right.
Next, we'll discuss skilled nursing reimbursement. Skilled nursing reimbursement uses the skilled nursing facility prospective payment system and the payment-driven payment model, or PDPM. PDPM focuses on patient clinical characteristics and care needs rather than therapy volume. As a result, accurate clinical assessment and documentation are critical. For Wildflower Court specifically, it's important to note that Medicaid accounted for 78% of Wildflower Court resident days in fiscal year 25. Medicaid reimbursement rates are established by the Alaska Office of Rate Review using a cost-based methodology. Rates are rebased every 4 years to reflect updated cost information. So while Medicare pays using the PDPM model, Wildflower Court's reimbursement is largely based on the Medicaid reimbursement model in Alaska. Next, we'll go into home health and hospice, or home health first. Home health services are reimbursed under the home health prospective payment system using the patient-driven groupings model, or PDGM. Payment is generally established for 30-day periods of care rather than individual visits. Patient diagnoses, clinical characteristics, and other factors influence reimbursement. Key performance drivers include referral volume, documentation quality, staffing efficiency, and utilization management. And next, we'll be going into hospice payments. Hospice is generally reimbursed through a daily payment structure. The daily payment amounts depend on the patient's level of care, such as routine home care, continuous care, respite care, or general inpatient care. Rather than billing separately for each service or supply, providers receive a daily rate intended to cover the care delivered during that period. Operational performance is largely driven by census, patient mix, staffing, and length of stay. And because this is a lot of information, I tried to just distill it down to a few high-level components here. This table summarizes the major payment methodologies we discussed. One of the key takeaways is that healthcare reimbursement can be based on very different units of payment. In some settings, reimbursement is tied to a case. In others, a service, sometimes a visit, a day, the period of care, or actual allowable costs. Understanding which unit drives reimbursement is critical when evaluating financial effects. This slide provides a simple framework for remembering these methodologies. For inpatient care, think case. For outpatient and professional services, think service. For rural health clinics, think visit. For critical access hospitals and the Rural Community Hospital Demonstration, think cost. For skilled nursing and hospice, think day. And for home health and hospice, think period. Now we'll shift from reimbursement methodologies to revenue recognition. Even after
Before you get to that, I just want to just kind of go back and the conversion for Bartlett Family, Glacier Peds, and ophthalmology, the provider-based clinics, and then the rural health clinic for family medicine, and which will happen then or a little bit later, those conversions. So the timing of that, what's involved in that? I guess I want to focus a little bit on the communication, the public communication around this change, especially as it impacts home care. So if we can talk about that and the reason why we're doing it, I guess.
I can probably take that on. So this is actually something I was gonna work with Erin when she returns to work after her maternity leave. So from a patient perspective, they won't see a meaningful change in their bill until we actually change that, designated that. And so from a provider-based standpoint, it'll look different, and it'll be on a CMS 1500 form right now. When we get the bill, it goes to two different forms, so the bill will be bifurcated. We'll go provider-based. And then when you go to rural health clinic, go back to that single bill. And that is on a UB 04 form versus a 1500, which is a facility form. Sorry. I mean, the complexity is that from a patient perspective, once we get to the end stage, it becomes a clinic visit. And it's paid as a clinic visit to the insurance company, and there's no vast differences.
Joe, there'll be a kind of a cessation of operating.
Oh, yeah.
Under.
Getting back to home health, like, so the order of events is once we get rural health clinics stood up, we have a period that we have to work with CMS to get the shortage area designated, which would call for the hospital sending notification of closure for home health services to the community. And so there'll be a mass mailing for all the patients that are in home health services. There will also be follow-up communication letters somehow from when we close the service on the 30th of the month and open the visiting nurse service on the 1st. There will be continuity of care between the patients from day 1 to day 2. We are starting working on some of the mechanics of that to make sure we know that there's no one dropping through the cracks. And so there's more work to be done between now and then. But as we look at the time frame of this, if we are starting to roll into rural health clinics, probably the end of this calendar year, I'm looking at first quarter of the calendar year next year for a home health conversion potentially. We do have to have CMS on board prior to this, so there are some discussions. They have allowed it in the past at other facilities, so foresee that. But as administrations and administrators change, sometimes those rules and their allowance changes.
So these forms that are getting mailed out to the whole community, it's we're quitting providing services but we're also continuing to provide services that. I mean, and I'm glad you're going to be working with Erin, because it's just, it's the messaging to the community that I think is super important around the fact that we're doing this. It's a change, kind of a technical change, but it doesn't impact the services that we're providing.
In terms of rebranding is kind of what I'm hearing.
It's rebranding.
Yeah, I think that's.
It is billed under a different Medicare. So home health is billed under Part B, and RHC is billed under Part A. So there's a little bit different, right? And so billing, there is some implications to the patient that we'll have to define and walk through.
And we're doing it because it'll be more financially stable. Is that correct?
Yeah, so you go from this per period incident payment to a per day payment or per visit payment, basically, for the years.
Yeah, and I wanted to, that was kind of a follow-up question that, if you don't need to go back 3 or 4 slides, but your summary I thought was really good because what it does is it paints a picture about how freaking complicated all this stuff is, right? I mean, there's a reason why rev cycle process has been under some stress because these are a lot of pieces that they've got to, stay on top of, right? And this will help with that to a certain extent because home health is a very complicated billing regimen. And this sounds like it'll be much more straightforward when we get to the RFC stage, correct?
Yeah, it'll be more straightforward and we basically reduce the survey too, right? So if we're gonna be a rural health clinic, we might as well get rid of the home health survey that we have to do right now because it's covered under the RHC survey we're doing anyways. And so it's reduced compliance standards and easier to issue.
And the documentation around those 30-day incident periods goes away too, correct?
Yeah, I believe they have to have a supervising visit every 60 or 90 days, if that memory serves. I have to look at the period. I mean, it's extended.
Thank you.
So on to the allowance of net revenue. So when billing, hospitals begin with gross charges, which are the standard amounts billed for services. However, very little revenue is actually collected at these amounts. We then apply contractual allowances, charity, care, and financial assistance, and then bad debt allowances, and then finally arrive at the net patient service revenue, which is management's best estimate of what the organization expects to actually collect. For board members, trends in these adjustments can provide important insights into payer mix, collection risk, and financial assistance utilization. Next slide. Contractual allowances represent the expected difference between the hospital's charges and the amounts that payers are obligated to pay under contracts or government regulations. These are not lawsuits and they are not collection problems. Rather, they reflect the reality that healthcare providers generally agree to accept payment amounts that are lower than the standard billed charges. This example illustrates the concept. Suppose a hospital bills 100,000 in charges, but the applicable payer contract allows reimbursement of only 35,000. The remaining 65,000 was never expected to be collectible. That amount becomes the contractual allowance. The key takeaway is that contractual allowances are a normal and expected part of healthcare reimbursement. They reflect negotiated payment arrangements rather than bad collections. And in practice, we estimate these allowances monthly using historical reimbursement and collection experience. Excellent. Bad debt allowances are different. At this point, reimbursement rates have already been established and the remaining balance represents legitimate patient responsibility. The allowance reflects management's estimate of amounts that ultimately will not be collected despite normal billing and collection efforts. I'll close with this comparison because it summarizes the key distinction. Contractual allowances answer the question, what is the payer required to pay? Bad debt allowances answer the question, after responsibility is established, what amount may not be collected? Both reduce expected revenue, but they stem from different causes and require different management strategies. Contractual allowances are primarily influenced by payer contracts, regulations, and payer mix. Bad debt allowances are influenced by patient responsibility, financial assistance processes, billing practices, and overall collection effectiveness. Any questions on contractual allowances and bad debt allowances?
It'd be so hard to predict the contractual allowances.
Because the revenue cycle is just constantly evolving, and it feels like it's evolving more rapidly every day with new technologies and more regulations and just more fights from third-party payers. So when all we have to go off of is our historical experience, that's never going to be 100% accurate when projecting future reimbursement, even for things that have already been billed. Does that answer your question?
And to follow up on that, can you maybe talk a little bit about the recent AI issues that you're dealing with where you're getting payers going back and kind of scrubbing bills for looking for ways to deny?
Yeah, there's been this nationwide trend towards third-party payers, insurance companies, using advanced technologies, and now they're marketing AI technologies as a way to detect minute errors in claims or things that may not even be errors that the AI deems errors, and then it results in instant denials on claims, which then get pushed back to the revenue cycle teams. And for rural community hospitals such as this, our teams are often not equipped for the volume of denials that are coming back, and the administrative headaches of having to appeal denials is getting to be a big problem across the country, and especially for rural hospitals like ourselves. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Thanks.
Similar, I mean, just to follow up on that question, I can see the problem of Bartlett, very small rural hospital up against large, very sophisticated insurance companies. What kind of strategies are rural hospitals using to, because it seems like it's not going to get better, it's only going to get worse. So what can we as a hospital do to just keep this from becoming, downward spiral?
In my opinion, I
You
think.
can pass that one to Joe if you want.
Yeah, it's a big question, but I think we just need to keep up with the evolution and not try to fight it using old tactics. We need to evolve with the technology. It's my personal opinion.
Yeah, and so we've developed, when we were looking at new technologies, you gotta fight technology with technology, as Andrew says. And so some of the things, we gotta be more innovative than they are. It also goes back to just being sound in our practices too. So make sure like we have prior authorizations, we have to get the easy stuff off the table, so we're just fighting stuff that's, more than. But
And then going to bad debt, I would imagine things like changes in Medicaid will increase bad debt. So it seems like a lot of the things that are on the horizon would make it reasonable to think that bad debt is not going to get better, no matter what, despite your best intentions. So I don't know what strategies.
that's a tougher one too, because like changes in economy, workforce, Medicaid's a big one. So if you take a population that barely qualifies for Medicaid today, but they're not qualifying here in 6 months, like they're not gonna be able to pay their hospital. Right. It's either they're not gonna seek care and get sicker and sicker until they end up in the ER and get admitted either way if we don't get there.
Their strategy now that Bartlett is looking at primary care offices to offer more like reduced rates, because the goal should be that we prevent people from getting sicker and sicker.
So we do have a financial assistance policy that does apply to our primary care clinics. One of the things I was doing was scrubbing the rural health transformation. There's a lot of good ideas in the projects that have been qualified with some of these areas. And so trying to look at that as a source to develop these things over the next 5 years.
Also rolling out remote patient monitoring to help people with chronic diseases manage those so that they can, if they're part of our family practice, they can have those touch points. So hopefully they have fewer acute episodes and come in. And we're investigating patient financing and helping and working on collecting more upfront, so we don't have those larger balances growing that people cannot pay. That we can help them manage that process. And we have several tactics that we were that we can.
Thank you. This is I wonder if, since with the rural health demonstration, we were largely cost-based, it sounds like, and then since we're not in that one, more in DRG, the inpatient side, that seems like it would be really hard for, there's different incentives for things that are going to drive, what actually back in the hospital in terms of, increased cost, increased reimbursement, and cost-based would assume, whereas other things like shorter stays can subsidize now. And I wonder if you think, Joe, this would be a question for you, if there's growing room still and systems changes that we can make to optimize revenue under GRG. If it's just like I would imagine there's so much change that has to change between billing under the different models, if there's still room to improve.
And so So when you look at our code triage, there's a lot of strategies around that. So as we try to get people in, have to make sure we're receiving them. So you are right, CVI, make sure we're getting discharges appropriately, looking at that. You know, the average length of stay, make sure we're falling within the mean. Trying to change that practice with doctors across the board is kind of a bigger lift. There is hopes that demonstration is extended at this point. And subsequent to that, another strategy we are looking at is swing bed program. And so that can play effect in both the DRG world and the cost-based world. And so if we get demonstration, it adds to the mix. If we don't get demonstration, it is another avenue for payment and increased reimbursement.
Any other?
That was excellent. Dense, high level, and quick. That was great. Thank you.
Just a quick question. Could you remind us again, when is the rural health clinic conversion supposed to occur? What's that time?
So we're doing a kickoff on 8:30 Wellness Stroudwater. We are already in the process. Gail's team, Angela's team, Sarah's team, we're doing a lot of work on it today. Our goal is to have the packet submitted by the end of October for survey shortly thereafter. We've already engaged the survey company. We are working on it diligently. So our goal is to have hopefully October done for family medicine, end of the calendar year for pediatrics.
And ophthalmology.
Ophthalmology would be a provider-based conversion. That should be hopefully September if I can make it happen. But there are some mechanics on that on the billing side that we have to make sure systems are in place for too.
So if I could just maybe, I appreciate John's comments. It's very good. So we are at, Angela, could you just talk about our contractual allowance overall percentage, the 51%, what that was, why that is so high, just kind of a nutshell that to, the creating that fund.
Sure. So we were at the 45.5% last year, and that's where we trended throughout the full year. The reason it crept up was a multitude of things. Two of the largest drivers, one was us rolling out of the Rural Health Demonstration Fund. That was $4.2 million a year of pure cash collections. It was based on that cost-based reimbursement. So instead of having the DRG payments only, it made up the difference of any of the shortfalls. So that without having that cash coming in on work that's already being done, of course, the contractual is going to increase to accommodate for that. Another portion was there was a break in the payment mechanism. And in January of this year, we stopped receiving our low volume adjustment and our uncompensated care adjustment. And that was a little over $3 million of pure cash coming in on work already being done. So you're talking about $7.2 million between those two things. We are going to be getting our low volume adjustment back, but only effective 7/22 moving forward. So we are going to still have that impact through a good portion of last year. Then
Excuse me, that's new information, right?
it is new. Yes, we just found it out yesterday.
And how much of the 7.2 million is that?
That would be a portion of the 3 million, which would be almost 7 months of it. So about 1.75 missing of the 3 million. So we should pick up about 1.25.
Why isn't it retro? Why is that a prospective change?
We had demonstration, it is retro.
I will. Okay.
But at the current adjustment, based on the submission request, it is only from the letter of submission date forward. So it's something that we can push back on, but it doesn't look like that has a lot of traction. And then we have found some opportunity through other RCM improvements, revenue cycle improvements to increase our collections. So some of that is lagging. Simply, we brought on PEDS, we brought on family practice. It takes time to stand those clinics up. It takes even longer to collect. You have that lag. And then we have opportunities where we can do that, but the host of all of those things have flowed into the 51% contractual where we're sitting right now. So we are recognizing all of that. We're moving forward in that vein until we can recapture some. Hopefully capturing, hopefully rural health demonstration comes back and legislation moves.
We're not expecting to hear anything on rural health administration till
Into the job period.
It's still sitting at 20 sponsors.
any other questions or comments for?
David Brown, one of the positions we're here for. One of the things that is past discussion, made me think about, and this is based on your comment, Mr. Warner, about redesignation of clinics being something that would mean that Medicare would be reimbursing a hospital based on hospital care as opposed to physician visits. Is that correct?
There's a facility component and a provider base, there's a facility component and a professional component. For rural health clinic, it's just an all-inclusive rate for Medicare and the cost-based rate for Medicaid.
Yes, that's the implication is if you're a Medicare recipient or Medicare is paying the bill and it's billed under Part A, your deductible is $1,700 per year. And for billed under Part B, your deductible is $280. So there's a big difference in getting clinic care, and yet you have to pay the first $1,700 as a patient versus.
Yeah, it's a little bit different from the clinic side. So what you're talking about is the inpatient deductible for the Part A. It doesn't quite apply on a one-to-one basis. It's a little bit different from the outpatient side. So it becomes the patient pays 20% of the charged amount in a rural health clinic. Right now, they pay 20% of the allowable. So it's a slightly different equation for the two people. And so there is a slight tweak in there. When we looked at our Medicare population, we have a highly secondary insurance. And so all of those, that 20% is picked up by secondary. I think when we did the analysis initially, I think we had roughly 5% of the population that has Medicare that doesn't have a secondary. And obviously that changes population and service, but that's why we have a financial assistance policy too.
It would make a difference if I were getting care, outpatient care, and that deductible changes.
Any other comments? Thank you. That was great. Very helpful. All right. Committee meeting updates. Planning committee.
The planning committee did meet on the first Friday, and most of the discussion was around the ED slight delay, not a huge difference in the cost. And I think any questions could be directed to Joe or Kim. And that's it.
I don't have a quick question. Is there any update to the timeline on the ED project that was discussed?
No, and share no update with that. They were supposed to do some pouring last Friday or over the weekend, and weather was not. So meeting twice a week.
So we're still relatively on
Yeah, no.
the last
no
time.
red flags.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, let's move on to the update for the finance committee.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we spent a lot of time, detail going through what you just had a presentation about and some of the comments earlier, so. And the continuing financial challenges.
and I'm not sure where it is in this packet, but I think just to close the loop on it, if you could go back in the board packet to page, it's there. It's page 29. So we've had an ongoing dialogue, and if you could make that bigger, and it's kind of hard, we'll get you centered on it here a little bit, but there's been a lot of discussion about, what do we do to close the gap in the event of all these issues that we're dealing with. And so Angela prepared this, and it basically takes all of the possibilities, and with a kind of the second or the first column numbers that you see there is the total potential upside of the implementation of the various things that we're pursuing right now. And then over on the far right, and I know it's awfully small and hard to see a little bit better if you're looking at it on a laptop, but kind of where we're expecting this to be based on, the percentage of realization of the total amount that's available to us by these different things. And I'd like Angela I think it's worthy to just kind of Angela and or Joe to spend a little bit of time just kind of talking through maybe the top 3 or 4 or 5 of the items and where we are. Some of these we've covered already, but I think it's just important to kind of put those together, because what we're talking about is, if we're looking at a worst case with especially rural demonstration, what are we going to do to keep our heads above water? And that's what this is all about.
So, sorry, Anita, if you could scroll up just so I can see the lines really quickly and switch back over there. Okay, so the first one is to increase the people volume. So the total opportunity there, if it were fully realized, would be about $3 million. And what we did, and I'm sorry, Anita, I'm going to ask you to scroll one more to the right. I'll probably have you back and forth a couple times here. Apologize, hope no one's motion sick. Is that as we phase this in, we looked at, July, realizing about 25% of this. This is adding in the third OR operating at full time and doing those improvements. And if we scaled those in starting in July and then ramp them up to be fully realized by March of 27, that would increase our net profit about 1.7 million. That balance that you're seeing is as it's starting to increase is ramping up. The second one has to do with the RCM improvements. So those are the revenue cycle improvements. We are starting with centralizing prior authorization. So the key point of prior authorization is that it is a no-fault breach to contract. So if we don't get a proper prior authorization before doing a procedure that requires one, it means you never get paid. There is no appeal. There's nothing that you can do to recover that money. It is gone. So that is one key point that we were able to find from our new denials management dashboard that we built for visibility. It was the first thing that popped out because we lost $3.3 million last year due to bad prior auths or no prior auths. So there's an immediate lift there by focusing in on that. The entire opportunity Stroudwater noticed at a pretty low hanging fruit level was about 6 million. Well, there's a good chunk of it right there. That's work we're already doing that we're not collecting on. So that's immediate lift. Centralizing that, I put that we would start in September achieving about 5% of that, and then ramping up to about 50%. So not fully realizing it. Centralizing this from a decentralized position throughout the entire organization takes time. It takes months. It takes a tremendous amount of work. It takes building documentation and training and cross-training and retraining. So it is a long process to achieve. But I estimated that we could achieve 1.5 of that 3.3 in year 1. So then we would continue that process and it would continue to reap rewards. The next one, and I'm sorry, I don't remember which one that one was. Thank you, Anita. improvements of services between observation and inpatient. So if we look at national and Alaska averages, we have a high percentage of observation instead of converting people to inpatient earlier. So we're working through that process. We have a task force on that right now. And improving that would have a significant lift. I put that at a very similar ramp up of 5% starting in September up to 55% by the end of our fiscal year, achieving about $500,000. So we went through all the different identified opportunities, and then we layered those in to achieve what would do the improvement over this fiscal year and where we would be at in a percentage of achievement at the end of the fiscal year. So not everything would be fully realized at the end of the year. We would love to say we could accomplish everything by June. It's not realistic. But what we can accomplish is a significant improvement. That balance is showing what happens as we do those improvements. So the highest increase in surgical services, then revenue cycle improvements. Then you see that the increases in net profit scale down as we start to ramp up. That balance ramps up. The biggest increase coming from the 7.2 million if we were to get rural health demonstration fund back. So we do have a lot of opportunity. I mean, there's still another 8 million in just system improvements, process improvements, streamlining, and using what we already have, collecting on the work we're already doing. There's still significant opportunity we've identified and we're already currently working on and is already starting to show and reflect that work that we're doing. Even if we did not get rural health demonstration funding.
Thank you for that.
Any questions for Max or anyone else with regard to finance committee?
Just one thing I think we did have a discussion about the upcoming union negotiation period, and we'll be talking about that some more later tonight, in executive session.
Let's move on to the summary of the quality and compliance. Okay. We did meet last Thursday. Meeting was actually pretty brief. I don't have any notes about it. Is there a report? It was, we couldn't get the minutes back in time to post on Friday. We had our deadline was posted. Okay. So the next meeting will be in 2 months, and it'll be a much more detailed meeting. If there is any details that you guys want to know, I'm sure you jump in and tell us if there's anything that needs to be brought up. Seeing that? Yeah. Okay. All right. We're now moving on to the administrative reports.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Most of the work over the last month was focused on the financial situation of the hospital. We are still meeting on a daily basis, looking at FTEs. We've had countless meetings with providers, requests, all the directors have come to us at this point. So we are going through, and there will be changes in the facility. In addition to that, August was a busy month, as Ms. McDowell stated. We had 11 days that were on code triage. And so when you're on call, I think the team can attest to the work that goes into that when the house is full. The doctors obviously know as well, but the census was high throughout the month. So lots going on. We did get some notification on some of the rural health transformation program applications we submitted. We were awarded $341,000 for the secure communication project that we have going forward. We were also wrapped into an award for AHA, where they were awarded roughly $250,000 for moving facilities to rural health clinic. So when we engage with Stroudwater, that would be funded through this, and they'll help do a lot of work through that. We still have one outstanding application that we're still waiting on. They have been announcing on Friday, so our hope is we'll know more this Friday. In addition to that, we have been asked to resubmit our EMR project for our planning grant. That has been submitted as of today, and they're asking clarifying questions. So we're hopeful that we get some additional funds to help with that process too. The board come as we work through those issues. We talked about rural health clinic. We are doing kickoff meetings. There's a lot of work going into that at this point, in addition to the swing band kickoff. And so we have a big kickoff meeting with the whole team tomorrow, going through that. Our goal is to have that kind of wrapped up if we can, potentially by November, December. So historically, Bartlett sees it decrease in census during those months. As we look at past years, that'd be the month we'd like to kick it off. We'd like to trial this on a low census month with very same patients who make sure all that's working. But there are a lot of pieces to get in place for that as well. One thing that I don't think we'll talk about was our 5-star that we got for our patient experience. You'll see that that was posted. There should be information going out about that. So we were the only 5-star hospital in the state of Alaska for the patient experience section. We've seen that. So that is a big one for us.
Is that a repeat? Is that the repeat of what we just had?
No, last year we were overall 5-star. This year we were 5-star for a single segment, which was patient experience.
Gotcha.
Is that wrong?
There, yes. You're wrong. There's two different. Yes, I'll say. There's two different awards on Care Compare. One is for patient safety. The other one is for patient experience. So if you go on Care Compare, you can see two different levels that CMS gives you. Last year, we had 5 stars for patient safety, 4 stars for patient experience. So this year we just flipped. And we have 4 stars for patient safety, 5 stars for patient experience. The other hospital that has 5 stars for patient safety in the state is Whitehead. So we're actually opposite of them this year. If we saw that on social media.
Thank you for straightening Joe out. Yeah.
We'll talk about that. So over the next couple of weeks, as we ramp up programs, a lot of our efforts just goes to get their steps to that. So it's kind of a abbreviated report as we work on the steps. I apologize. If there's any questions or comments, rumors I can address. Yeah.
Any questions? Okay. Ms. Brown. Human Resources.
Thank you. So just to clarify, we are kicking off union negotiations October 9th. That is a set time. We'll be talking about that in the executive session. Outside of that, we're just continuing to move forward with the human capital management project. Seeing a lot of great traction, a lot of great work we've done there. And so that's really a much more sweet today. We can have a lot more to talk about in the executive session. So that's what I got for us.
Any questions for Brown on Human Resources? Short and sweet. Thanks. All right. CBJ liaison report. And Alicia texted me right before she boarded the plane, and I will just read that. She said, my report is that we are scheduling a joint meeting with the Department Board in September. And she's working with the mayor and I assume you all to get that set up. Yeah, so, and we had our regular assembly meeting on the 17th, and sort of the big item on the agenda was the proposal of City Hall, which I read in the paper that SHI, Seal Africa Heritage Institute, that's the option that was chosen. Coming up, we have our something that would be of interest to the hospital, I think, at least for your department, is the Land Housing and Economic Development. They will be taking the first look at draft e-moto ordinance, so regulating the e-motorcycles. which we all saw an explosion of in our community this year. And hoping it will really calm down with the kids back in school. But Lisa said that all. Yeah, anyway, it was, and I'm sure your ER probably saw a significant impact from that as well. Largely during the work days, I thought parents do not know what their kids are up to. So anyway, that'll be coming up. And then the committee as a whole on the 31st, and we'll be looking at long-term funding options for the GLOP and third-party management of rec facilities. We'll be preparing a report on that. It's a cost-cutting measure, we might look at possible third-party management. So we'll be hearing from folks around. That's my report.
I'm glad to hear that there's a possible joint meeting in the works. September seems early to me for us to, just, it seems that a November timeframe would be a lot more useful in terms of the number of irons in the fire that you have, and letting some of these fade to fruition before we meet with the assembly. And there's going to be 2 assembly members leaving, so it'd be an opportunity for us to educate some new members through the same process.
I certainly want to talk about the funding issue right away with the assembly.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that, we need to do that now?
You're talking about the transfer?
Yeah, exactly. That seems to be what's driving I think that was what was requested, right? We went sooner rather than waiting until.
My discussion with Ms. Kester was to discuss the financial situation of the hospital, is why they want to do a meeting of the whole, or committee of the whole. It wasn't to discuss the funding for the transfer.
Yeah, I think, just some of the headwinds you all were facing. It's probably good that Assembly surprised with that, and I'll let, Chair Deb Johnson and the Mayor, and I'll let you all figure out the optimal date for that and what wants to be covered. If it's better November or September, and maybe it's better to have the 2 new Assembly people on board with it. I think we're going to have a chat in the next couple of weeks when trying to schedule the meeting with both Ms. Kester and the mayor today. For a couple of reasons, we'd like just to pick the optimal date, but also to see if there's anything specific besides the umbrella overall health of the organization that the assembly, that would be good for the assembly to have additional information on that we can provide as a baseline for a starting spot for the joint meeting. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Dr. Putt?
For the medical staff report, we had a great presentation this month by Andrew Pentiskas. He's the division chief of emergency medicine for Capital City Fire and Rescue. There's some plans that they've rolled out that can be used for medically complex children that are in the community to help medical providers that are arriving mostly in the EMS capacity at this point. Let the system know how best to care for those children. So he gave us a great presentation on that at our last meeting. We're rolling out a new provider orientation policy to help make sure that new clinicians are more familiar with how to actually function within the system. And I appreciate discussions with Kim McDowell about the code triage process as we all work through that. Has been really busy for everybody. And we're working on improving communications with the whole system in that. We also talked about CR days. I appreciate the costing model that was shared openly at the last board meeting that was brought to the medical staff. And we had a request from the CEO to consider, do we think CRNAs should be licensed independent practitioners? The medical staff is pro CRNA. But we think that they should be supervised. And with licensed independent practitioners, we would have concerns about patient safety. And also concerns that we might end up sending more patients out of juvenile, due to the lower level of administration.
Any questions? You have to talk. You have. President's reports. I spent a lot of time with Joe on hospital issues and attending committee meetings. However, the one thing that I got this month, I've been working with our attorney to finalize a contract for the next year for Joe. Joe had a single piece of paper as a contract when he was first employed. So we'll be meeting starting tomorrow to finalize that contract, and we'll let you know what when it's ready to go. Just a reminder of the events, foundation events that are coming up. I know that when the holidays start, they have a couple of other events that happen. Light of the Life will happen this fall. So be on the lookout for those, and hopefully we'll get some of you that have availability to attend their usually great events. Board calendar. Oh, any questions for me? Sorry.
Oh, go ahead. This is about the book count.
Okay.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, so we were unable to find a date suitable for all of us for the governance committee. So maybe we'll try one more time here for September. Failing that, we need to find a day that would work for October for the governance committee. So are we governance committee members? Or we weren't able to pick a day by correspondence
For September.
for September. So should we just give up on that and move to October? And if so, can we get some consensus on that?
What dates did you have? I didn't get specific dates to do. I got told when came.
I will be gone, I think from the 21st to the 27th. Chris, you had some Fridays that I think, I can't remember. What, didn't you say Fridays could work?
Yeah, any Friday in that month would work.
Yeah, we're talking.
Yeah, we're talking about September. So my question still, is, should we try again to find the day in September? Should we just give up?
Getting from October to September, but what's, so the 10th does not work?
The 10th works, I think, for me, but Chris said,
It was the time of day, if I remember right. You tried to have it.
No, I just had anytime after 12. It's scheduled kind of weird. Need in the office. So I can't do it before. I don't want to do it at 8 or 7 because I'm already starting work. So later in the day is fine.
I mean, I can't, I've got something at 3 o'clock. You know,
I can do noon.
I can do noon, nothing else.
Okay. Is it too late to get us on the calendar for September 10th? Okay, well, thanks. Then let's do that.
So just to be clear, noon on the 10th.
That's what I think is everybody's.
Okay. You go with it.
Plan committee, we're still good for.
Yes.
And you can see that we have proposed to move the finance committee to, well, two things that are out of the ordinary, out of the normal. We have five Tuesdays in the month of September. So we are proposing to move that back, move the board meeting back from the 4th to the 5th Tuesday. and move we had some scheduling conflicts, and move the finance committee to the 28th. So we will not have minutes for the board meeting, but we will have a report for the board meeting. Are there any-
I have a question. We were debating about planning because there hasn't been much change. You know, Wildflower is working on their fire alarm system and the ED is sort of moving along. Absent new data, we were debating whether to just go October. So can we just leave it definitely on? And then Kim and Joe can mention if we really should have a meeting, and I'm happy to. I'll be here.
The one pending item, if there's any rural health transformation, things that come up in the short term. we might bring the-
Make funding, okay.
So then moving the board meeting 29th is a big favor to me because I'll be able to add 20 seconds. So I appreciate
Any other questions or suggestions? I would entertain a motion to approve the calendar as amended.
Move to approve the calendar as amended.
That was you, Mr. Letterman? Yes, it was. Okay, no objections. Seeing no objection, calendar is approved. And it's now time for board comments and questions. Talia? I saw that thing go up.
Yeah, I'm still puzzling about this idea of calling board graduates MD. So as I thought about it, well, the RN behind as post-nominal letters is a job description. I mean, no university I know gives an RN degree, and that's just what it is. But the confusion is that MD is both a degree and a job, could be a job description. So it could be that we're calling foreign graduates who received an MD degree, an MD is a job description, the same way we call RN. But again, in the grant prevention files this month, I found a case of a fellow who had received it. I'm forgetting the particular degree, but he'd received a degree from the British system. And he was listed as MD as his degree, but his degree was not MD. So we still have this problem. But there was some confusion in my mind too. I think part of what we need to do is establish that MD can be a job description, same way RN is. But in every case, the person's degree, I think, needs to match the degree that the person's given. So I brought this up before, but I'm just.
Thank you. Thank you for the concerns. Now, I recognizing them before I pass them on to their credentials committee, but I apologize on the phone. So I will follow up with them and get back to you. I'm anticipating that would need to be, that we would create, I can't remember what the specific term is, but you can create a standing rule to have an exception for certain degree forms. And I think it's MBBS that you're talking about as the form.
Well, that's only one of many degrees in the system that people might have.
I apologize, I don't have follow up, but I will get that.
Sure.
Yes.
So that was part of the build a credential stream that they built the education section. It was lumped together. So in the new MD staff, they have it built out that the education section is very delineated. So it should solve when they go live with MD staff that the files should be cleaner when it comes to the reviewers. I was in a meeting with Carney and they were correcting the problems from the way the build and the files were coming over from credential stream into MD staff, and I'm sitting in on that meeting. So hopefully that will correct itself when we go live.
I'm sure if I could, well, just to be redundant, I think we need to establish that we are going to use MD as a job description separate from the degree too. That needs to be somewhere. That needs to be, because these post-nominal letters, we've got three basic kinds. We have job descriptions, we have degrees, Then we have these kind of fluffy things, you know, like certified, really nice guy or something. But we need to get that written down. So
Dr. Tom.
Happy to continue discussing, also happy to do so in executive session if you think there should be a credentialing report. Are you happy with, oh, he might not provider specific. Interested to consider. I think there's a lot of DO colleagues out there who are very proud of their osteopathic training and use that as their letters behind their name also. And so I don't know that we all necessarily use the NT lettering. I think a lot of the MBBS stuff that now that I've been paying close attention to this after you brought it up, thank you, is a lot of it from some of our teleneurology colleagues who have an agreement that if they're credentialed at Providence, then we kind of automatically credential them. So I'm very excited to see if that will be streamlined in the new process. It seems that a lot of those files don't actually aren't outlined in the current system that we're using, so it might not be super clear, but we also have an agreement, is my understanding when I've asked questions before with Providence and our teleneuro colleagues, that if they're credentialed there, we will credential them. I think it's a waiver that we will need to do. So I think that's what we'll probably have to do is create a waiver so that we can accept their training that way. And
Any other?
One big shift. Joe, could you bring the board up to speed on the Parkland House project? Is that moving forward? Are we getting?
we discussed that in finance shortly, just due to financial considerations and then multiple projects. We're looking at the timing of it, and so I am working on it in the background. We have a kind of a sketch and an estimate of the cost. As far as we got at this point. We got to make sure we're on sound financial footing before we spend minutes.
Sure.
Great.
I just apologize. I forgot one thing in my report. Going back to the rural transformation funds that have come through, we did also have a partnership with the Southeast Child Collective, which was awarded some money for childcare, specifically targeted towards Parkland employees. So I'm really excited to kick out that project with we should like one of our pain points is childcare. Housing money.
I'll be interested to see how that ultimately looks. That's what is the most important comments or questions that we've had in a long time. All right, I would now entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Madam Chair, I would move that the Board of Directors of Bartlett Regional Hospital recess into executive session to discuss several matters as noticed in the agenda, including those which by law, municipal charter, or ordinance are required to be confidential or involve consideration of records that are not subject to public disclosure, specifically the credentialing report, medical staff meeting minutes, patient safety dashboard, and legal updates. And Madam Chair, I'd ask that Dr. Cotton and maybe other members of the medical staff remain, and I would ask that you be given latitude as to decide which members of staff should.
I second that.
Thank you. We are now in executive session. I'd like to take a 10-minute break. Thank you.
Are we good?
Yes, I would entertain a motion
I
to
move that
extend the,
we extend the Bartlett board meeting up to 15 minutes for an extensive discussion.
Second that.
any objection? Seeing none. That motion is approved. Now I would entertain a motion to go back into executive session.
Madam Chair, I move that the Board of Directors of Bartlett Regional Hospital go back into executive session, to discuss matters such as those which by law, municipal charter, or ordinance required to be confidential. That's probably all we need to say for that.
I second.
When legal updates.
So second.
And no objections? Okay. Okay, now we are back in open session. The board has given direction to senior leadership regarding legal issues and union negotiations. Any other comments? Seeing hearing none, we are adjourned. I think